In news from the courts, we learned that a Dominican man was sentenced to nearly 12 years in prison in connection with a 2019 shootout. A man was charged with driving under the influence following a vehicular accident, and the local United States Attorney's Office collected over $200,000 in civil and criminal actions this year. Ramir Guerrero Morales of the Dominican Republic was sentenced to almost 12 years in jail by a federal judge after pleading guilty in March to possession and discharge of a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence and assaulting a federal officer. The charges come following a shootout between Morales and U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents on September 25, 2019. That evening, Morales and three co-conspirators were driven to Haulover Bay, a well-known drug smuggling area on the east end of St. John. Morales and the others had over $1.1 million, which they were going to use to collect approximately 100 kilograms of cocaine from traffickers from Tortola in the BVI. When they arrived, Morales and co-defendant Juan Morales Nolasco headed down the trail to ensure the coast was clear, planning to signal for the others waiting in the vehicle to bring the money to complete the transaction while the driver stayed behind. On their way down, Guerrero Morales and Morales Nolasco encountered two CBP agents who immediately announced themselves as police. Morales, who was armed with a handgun, opened fire. In the aftermath of the shootout that ensued, one CBP Air and Marine Interdiction agent was left nursing gunshot wounds to his shoulder and leg, while Morales was wounded in the leg to such an extent that the limb later had to be amputated. Morales Nolasco, meanwhile, fled during the exchange of gunfire and was subsequently located in the Dominican Republic and extradited back to the territory for prosecution. The other co-conspirators waiting in the vehicle also fled the area. Pena Columna, the driver on the day, was a paid confidential source conducting his own drug trafficking operation. He later told federal agents that he took the men along with the cash near the Cruz Bay area where they escaped. Columna was convicted in September, with his sentencing scheduled for January 19, 2023. Morales Nolasco pleaded guilty in March of this year, and on December 6th, he was sentenced to 8 years and 4 months in prison for his role in the drug trafficking conspiracy. Meanwhile, Robert A. Groh appeared in territorial court earlier this week, charged after police responded to an auto collision on Veterans Drive last Saturday. Officers arrived after the two vehicles involved, a green Toyota Tundra and a white Toyota Tacoma, had been moved and parked in the Palm Passage parking lot near Greenhouse. They found the driver of the Tacoma, Robert Groh, unable to keep his balance. Although the officer detected a slight odor of alcohol emanating from his breath and noticed that his eyes were slightly red and watery, Groh told the officer that he had not been drinking. He subsequently failed all of the standardized field sobriety tests that were administered. Now under arrest, Groh was transported to the Traffic Investigation Bureau, where he consented to the chemical intoximeter test, resulting in a reading of a .201 blood alcohol content. In court on Monday, a judge ruled that he be allowed to post $500 in cash to secure his release. Groh will be barred from leaving the St. Thomas and John district without the court's written permission and must report to the probation office every week. His driving privileges will be suspended for 90 days. Groh will be prohibited from consuming alcohol or any controlled substance while the matter is pending. Meanwhile, U.S. Attorney Delia Smith announced on Thursday that the District of the Virgin Islands has collected almost $250,000 in fiscal year 2022. That's $244,898 in criminal actions and $1,600 in civil actions. An additional $73,600 was collected in civil cases pursued jointly by the District of the Virgin Islands and other U.S. attorneys' offices and components of the Department of Justice. According to the release, the U.S. Attorney's Office, along with the Justice Department's litigating divisions, are responsible for enforcing and collecting civil and criminal debts owed to the United States and criminal debts owed to federal crime victims. The law requires defendants to pay restitution to victims of certain federal crimes who have suffered a physical injury or financial loss. While restitution is paid to victims, criminal fines and felony assessments are paid to the department's Crime Victims Fund, which then distributes the money collected to federal and state victim compensation and victim assistance programs. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Virgin Islands, working with partner agencies and divisions, collected just over $820,000 in asset forfeiture actions in fiscal year 2022. Forfeited assets deposited into the Department of Justice Assets Forfeiture Fund are used to restore funds to crime victims and for a variety of law enforcement purposes.